Let's see. Make sure I have everything put together as I like it. Okay. It is 5 o'clock. Welcome everybody to Just G Live. I'm George Ruggiero, and this is, just another live stream. So this is kind of a follow-up, or I should say kind of a continuation of what we had on Tuesday. So on Tuesday we talked about excuse me. Again, it's springtime, pollen is out. I'm a little bit allergic to that, so I apologize in advance for any coughing or any throat clearing I end up needing to do. It's just kind of what most of us have to deal with during this time of the year anyway. I hope everybody at home themselves, though, is doing well, is staying healthy, is kind of staying inside for the health and safety of pretty much everybody out there. But like I said, on Tuesday, we talked about the Western Conference of the NBA and about what possible playoff matchups there might be when it comes to playoff time or when it comes to whenever the pandemic, I guess, is over to an extent that they can start playing games again, whether that be behind closed doors or in whatever sense. Whenever the leagues feel comfortable, players and coaches and everybody feels comfortable enough to get games going again. From everything I've heard, they want to keep the regular season going. They want to finish that out before they get into a playoff situation. But in the case that this whole thing runs on a little bit longer than when some people expect, and the league ends up having to just kind of jump in and say, look, guys, we're sorry. We understand there was probably, for some teams, 15, 16, 17, maybe up to 20 games left in the regular season. Look, we're sorry, but this just isn't feasible. It's either this and we do a playoffs or we cancel the season. Take your pick. And I'm pretty sure from everything I've heard that a lot of the players would say, all right, yes, that sucks, but let's play a playoffs and at least crown a winner. So the Western Conference is a lot more competitive. I will just admit that this stream might go a little bit shorter than others. I'm going to try and keep it going as long as I can. This probably won't last 45 minutes to an hour, probably closer to 30, 35, just because looking at the matchups that are going on with the Eastern Conference, some of these are just no brainers. Some of these are just matchups where one team is just straight up so much better than the other team or the team that they're playing against. There are a couple good series. The series between the 3 seed and the 6 seed currently, and then the 4 seed and the 5 seed. Both those should be very, very good matchups, but the top two teams are just honestly so much better than the rest of the conference. It's not even funny. And with that in mind, I think then it's time to kind of get on with it and start talking about these playoff series. So the 1 seed is the Milwaukee Bucks. Come on. I mean, they've got arguably the best player in the NBA. We'll get into that when we talk about the lineups. Facing off against the Orlando Magic, the Bucks were 53 and 12. And if I'm not mistaken, let me double check this before I say anything wrong. No, I was right. Okay. So that is the best record in the entire association in all of basketball. 53 and 12. They have the best record by a good couple games over the Lakers. So just based on how they've been playing in the regular season, the Bucks are the best team in basketball right now. Do I think they'll be slowing down? No. I mean, this is a team that is got some great talent up front, great talent in their starting five, and then they also have a couple pretty solid players that can come up off the bench. And then the 8 seed Orlando Magic are 30 and 35, 5 games below 500. Yeah. So just kind of to go back and compare this to the Western Conference. So the bottom two teams in the Eastern Conference are both sub 500. They both have a lower than 500 winning percentage. And then only the 8 seed in the Western Conference has a sub 500 record, and it's by a single game. It's by one game. Both the 7 seed and the 8 seed are multiple games sub 500. Look, it's just not as good. It's not as competitive. Do I think that some of the matchups could end up being better series? Yeah, but at the end of the day, the 1 seed and the 2 seed are essentially a lock to go on because I don't see the Magic getting past the Bucks. And just as a precursor for the next series that I talk about, I don't see the Nets getting past the Raptors. I don't think it'll be that good a series, and I don't think that the Nets really have much of a chance. But we'll talk a little bit more about that in depth after we talk about the 1 seed and the 8 seed. So, the lineup that the Bucks went with, so for Tuesday's show, I did it a little bit different. So, for Tuesday's show, I looked at the starting lineup and stuff like that from the last game that was played during the regular season. And then for this one, I kind of thought about it a little bit more and I said, okay, that might not have been the best way to go about it. I think there's probably a better way that I could have shown the quality of these teams, whether they're really high quality or maybe not as much. So I went with this time on ESPN. They actually have a little tab that has their full depth chart. And then I took that and I compared it to playing time during the season. Because look, you can be second, you can be third or fourth on the depth chart, but look, if you're getting a lot of game time, you're obviously one of the guys that comes off the bench more often than not for your team, and you're a lot closer to a starting role than maybe that original depth chart shows. So I kind of took those two things, compared them, and wrote up the starting five for each team and a couple of their top bench players, a couple of the guys that you know are going to come off the bench and probably play a pretty big role in winning games or losing games for that matter. So for the Bucks, their starting point guard is Eric Bledsoe. Their starting shooting guard is Wesley Matthews. Starting at the 3 is Chris Middleton. At the 4 is, of course, hopefully I can get this right, Giannis Antetokounmpo. From now on, I'm just going to call him Giannis. And then their center is Brook Lopez. And they have a couple good veteran players coming off the bench. Brook Lopez's brother, Robin Lopez, another center. Kyle Korver, who, I mean, if you've watched him play throughout his career, he might not necessarily be the best all-around player, but he's got great shooting, especially from long range, and if I'm not mistaken, he has a couple rings. Sterling Brown and Frank Mason, the third, round out kind of the basic bench players that would be coming off the bench for the Bucks. They have some other guys like Dante DiVincenzo, but they're tending to get a lot less game time than guys like Korver or Lopez or even Sterling Brown. And then for the Magic starting lineup is Markelle Fultz at point guard, Evan Fournier playing shooting guard, James Ennis III playing small forward, Aaron Gordon playing power forward, and Nikola Vucevic, I want to say. It's either Vucevic or Vucevic playing center. Their bench goes around the lines of DJ Augustine for a point guard, Terrence Ross usually will slip in there as a shooting guard or a small forward, Al-Farouq Aminu and Kem Birch both kind of play that small forward, power forward role. And part of the question mark, I guess I could say, about the Magic is, one, their lack of depth, and two, their injury concerns. So a lot of the Magic's depth players are coming off of injuries or are still injured from, when the league was postponed. So I know in that kind of bench, I mentioned Al-Farouq Aminu and Kem Birch, but both of those guys weren't getting a lot of game time, if any game time, whenever the league decided, okay, we need to shut this down. We need to make sure that everybody's staying safe and healthy. Those two guys weren't playing at all. Aminu and Birch, both of them were on the injured reserve. Both of them were not playing, were not coming off the bench. And DJ Augustine and Terrence Ross, realistically, Augustine's not a starting level point guard, and Ross isn't a starting level shooting guard or small forward, depending on where they put him in at. Those guys, yes, they're depth players. Yes, they're helpful to come off the bench. And yeah, you can get some offensive outbursts from some of them. I remember during the regular season, Augustine had a couple 20, 30 point plus games, but one 30-point game might win you that game. But if for the rest of the series, you're just coming off the bench and putting up 6, 7, 8, at the most 11 points, something like that, that doesn't win you games. That doesn't really help you when you realistically should have your starter in there most of the time and have them put up double or triple that amount of points. And thing is, why I say that this one just really isn't much of a competition. I mean, there's just one player on the Bucks that you have to worry about anytime that he's on the court, and that's Giannis. At this point, I think it's fair to say that Giannis is arguably the best player in the NBA right now, if not the best, certainly one of the best players. Like just so far this season, he's averaging a triple double and scoring just about 30 points a game. Yes, he picked up an injury, a slight, I think it was an ankle tweak or something like that. He was listed day to day just before the break, and then he's got 2 months off to rest. And this is a guy that realistically through a 7-game stretch can average a triple double and put up 30 plus points a game. If that isn't dominant, if that isn't just pure domination, I don't know what is. And just all in all, the Bucks have a better team. Right now, Bledsoe's better than Fultz. Matthews is better than Fournier. Middleton's better than Ennis. Giannis is better than Aaron Gordon. And I'm a fan of Vucevic. Brooke Lopez and Robin Lopez, they are veteran guys. They've been in this spot before. They're good centers. I would say maybe they're more of a wash depending on what you're looking for out of your center. Brooke Lopez might not be as good defensively, but Brooke Lopez is very, very good offensively. Got a great shot from long range. So that one might be a little bit more of a wash, maybe leaning towards the Magic, but pretty much other than that, the Bucks just have a better team out and out. I would not be surprised if the Bucks sweep, if this were to actually be a playoff matchup. There are some other teams in the Eastern Conference that very well could make it. Actually, I'm looking at it again. Not really. Orlando is 5.5 games up on Washington for the 8 seed. And I don't see the Wizards picking up that much. And then look, past the Wizards, look, it's Charlotte, Chicago, the Knicks, Detroit, Atlanta, and Cleveland. Cleveland and Atlanta are 34 games back of a playoff spot right now. I would not be surprised that if they lost one more game, if the regular season were to start up, they'd end up like the Golden State Warriors and be eliminated from playoff contention. So this is realistically the only matchup I see being possible here. Maybe you can maybe flip the Nets and Orlando. I mean, it's just a half game difference there. Either way, whether it's the Magic or the Nets, it's not a contest. The Bucks are, like I said, they're the best team in the NBA right now. They were playing the best. They have some of the best players. This one be a wash. Should be a sweep. 4-0. Bucks. Stamped. Ticket. Moving on. The next matchup is the number 2 Toronto Raptors and the number 7 Brooklyn Nets. The Raptors were 46-18, so just a good, I want to say, is that 6 games back? Might be 5.5. Actually, it's 6.5. Wow, just because of games played, but 6.5 games back of the number 1 seed. I didn't see them picking that up. And the Nets are 30-34, just a half game up on the Magic. Now, this Raptors team, even without Kawhi Leonard, it's a solid team top to bottom. This is one of those teams where they might not necessarily have a true standout player, but each of their players is arguably in the top, 10% of their position in the NBA. So you might not have the number 1, the number 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever best guy in the league. But if all your players, 1, play a similar style, and 2, know how to play together. I mean, this Raptors team, for the most part, these players played together since last season when they won the NBA Finals. Would not be surprised if this Raptors team makes another pretty deep run in the playoffs. It's still a very, very good team. And it's a team that knows itself and knows their identity and knows the type of game they need to play to win games. So their point guard, of course, is still Kyle Lowry. Their shooting guard is Fred VanVleet. Their small forward is OG Anunoby. Their power forward is Pascal Siakam. And their center is Serge Ibaka. And then coming off the bench, two of these names I just love. The first guy off their bench, I love it so much. Terrence Davis. Let me see if I can actually find his number so far because he's had a great season so far. Actually, let me back that up and I'll try and find it real quick. But Terrence Davis, just great for me to see. I love seeing him. Points wise, he's not averaging a crazy amount of points per game. He started a couple games, but either way, for someone to come out of Ole Miss and be playing at the NBA level and be playing well enough to end up starting games for the Raptors, that's really just something I love to see. Marc Gasol, it is disappointing to see Gasol not on the Grizzlies. He was there for so long. That's just kind of been his home, and it's someone that I've always looked to whenever I talk about the Grizzlies. I say, "Oh, they've got Gasol still. He's still, a great center." But it is good to see him out there winning games, winning championships, and just playing well with the Raptors. And then Chris Boucher is one of their other guys that comes off the bench regularly. And then for the Nets, and this is just currently injuries have taken their toll on the Nets, certainly. And why I'm not, well, I'm going to end up talking about two of their players, but the chances of them coming back, and this is stuff coming out of the team from team ownership, team leadership, that two of their star players likely won't come back or likely will not be healthy enough to play during whatever semblance of basketball there is after this postponement. So their starting point guard is Spencer Dinwiddie. Starting shooting guard is Karis LeVert, excuse me. Their starting small forward is Joe Harris. Their starting power forward is Wilson Chandler. And they kind of have a split time kind of situation going on at center. They've got DeAndre Jordan and Jarrett Allen both playing a ton of minutes, getting a lot of points and a lot of rebounds. And I kind of put Allen both as a bench player and a starter. He gets a lot of playing time. If I'm not mistaken, he plays about 25 and a half minutes a game, something like that. So realistically, he's not necessarily just coming off the bench. He's getting a lot of game time. He's playing a lot of minutes for the Nets, excuse me. But DeAndre Jordan technically has the starting role according to the depth chart that they release. Apart from Allen, they've got Taurean Prince and Garrett Temple. Both those guys are solid bench guys, solid depth players that come off the bench and make an impact. And I've already talked about Terrence Davis, how it's so much fun to see that he's been killing it for the Raptors. He's been playing a lot of, or not necessarily a lot of minutes, getting about 17 minutes a game, scoring just about 8 points a game. But either way, if he continues to progress and continues to play well, I could certainly see him starting for the Raptors. Maybe not next year, but in the next couple of years. And it'll be awesome to see a former Ole Miss player still playing on an NBA roster and starting for an NBA roster. That would just be so much fun, so awesome to see. And really, the rest of the talk about this about this matchup is going to focus on the Nets because they have a couple injuries, a couple major injuries. Of course, everybody knows KD is Kevin Durant not looking to realistically play this season. I don't think he's going to play, even if the Nets somehow, if the league says we're going to take playoffs, push them off till the spring, or excuse me, till the fall, and then just start next season later. At that point, KD should be healthy because right now is when playoffs should be going on, and he got injured last year in the playoffs. So give it a year for that Achilles. He's been working out a lot. He's been working really hard on the rehab and getting ready to play again, but I don't think that they're going to risk it. I mean, the GM, they talked to him about it, and he said, look, this is $110 million question. And that's just the base of it. I mean, I don't think he'll be coming back, even if they get into the playoffs. And at the same time, I don't think Kyrie Irving will either. That's the talk that's coming out of the Nets right now, is that neither KD nor Kyrie are going to be ready to play if the league is done in, say, or are ready to play in, say, a month, couple weeks. Those two players are stars. Those two players are incredibly impactful on the court. And the fact that the Nets won't have either really just makes this an easy decision to look at it and say, okay, well, the Raptors are obviously going to win this matchup. It's that simple. Without those two guys, I don't think the Nets have a chance. And realistically, even if if KD were coming back and were completely healthy, this would be a different conversation. Because Kevin Durant, realistically, is the best scorer in the NBA. He can take over the game. He can shoot from anywhere on the court and just fill the basket. He is a dominant scoring force to be reckoned with. And whether he's completely healthy or not, the fact that he is not playing with the Nets make them so much weaker. But my kicker with this is whether Kyrie Irving is playing or isn't playing, does that really make a difference? Does that make a huge difference for the Nets? After looking through the whole season, I don't think it really does. While Kyrie brings a completely different element to the game than someone like Spencer Dinwiddie, because those two are kind of the guys that play that position, play the point guard position. If Kyrie comes back, would it be good for the Nets? I don't think so. Yes, Kyrie is incredibly talented. Yes, Kyrie can hit the clutch shot, can win games, can win championships for your team. I mean, just look what he did with LeBron James and the Cavaliers. One of those championships, he hit the game winning shot. He hit the series winning shot. But without other stars and other really top level talent around him, and when the onus is on him, can he get it done? Throughout what he's done so far, either with the Cavs without LeBron, or with the Nets, or with Boston, he just wasn't able to put it all together. And I think that comes down to the style of play that he has. He needs a dominant ball carrying playmaker that, essentially pulls two defenders to him to play his game. He plays strict ISO. He just tries and shoots it up from anywhere or take on the man one on one. And just looking at the rest of this team around him with this Nets team, I don't think it's good for them. Now, when KD comes back, will that be different? Probably. I feel like those two together can make a big difference on this team and the way that this team, it's not how they will play, it's how they will have to play. Just because both those guys like to get the ball in their hands, and both those guys are incredible talents and incredible scorers, but they're also dominant presences. I'm not sure if they'll be able to work together completely. I know that they're friends off the court, so we'll just have to wait and see with what happens with them. Either way, Raptors in 5. I don't think the Nets have a chance. Is there a chance that they could steal a game in Brooklyn? Maybe have a Jared Allen go off a game, or LeVert or Dinwiddie just pour it in? Yeah, that could happen, and that could down the Raptors for a game. But I don't think it's much of a question. Raptors take it to the Nets and beat them easily. Now, these two should be fun. The 3 seed and the 6 seed, the number 3 team. This series looks to be a lot of fun. So the Celtics are 43-21. The 76ers are 39-26. And this series is going to come down, I think, to the starting 5. Starting 5 and injury concerns, I should say. So let me run through the starting 5, and then we can talk about breaking that down player by player and looking at some of the things that'll affect the series. So for Boston, their starting point guard is Kemba Walker. Their starting shooting guard is Jaylen Brown. Their starting small forward is Jason Tatum. Their starting power forward this season is Gordon Hayward. And their starting center is Daniel Tice, I want to say. That's how you pronounce it. Either way, and coming off the bench for them is a mixture of Marcus Smart, Enes Kanter, and Grant Williams. And then for the Sixers, their starting point guard is Ben Simmons. Their starting shooting guard is Josh Richardson. Their starting small forward is Tobias Harris. Their starting power forward is actually Al Horford, formerly of the Boston Celtics. And the Sixers starting center is Joel Embiid. Coming off the bench for them is Glenn Robinson III, Furkan Korkmaz, and Alec Burks. And looking at this matchup, I think this has to be my favorite matchup of the Eastern Conference teams, and probably the best matchup of these Eastern Conference teams. Both teams are very deep top to bottom and have a lot of top end talent. And in looking at it, I think the real difference maker is going to be injury concerns for these teams. Of course, everybody knows in his first season with the Celtics, Gordon Hayward, I think that might have been his first or second game with the team, goes out there, breaks his ankle, breaks some bones in his leg, out for the entire season. Simple as that. He comes back this year. He's been playing well. He's been playing some good basketball. Let me see if I can find some of his numbers. He's averaging 33 minutes a game, 17 points a game. That's all you can really ask for out of a starting power forward, is he's putting up a lot of points. helping out on both sides of the ball. But overall, Gordon Hayward is an offensive power forward, and he's realistically running that offense. At the same time, you have to wonder whether he'll be able to stay healthy. Whether, yes, he's certainly strengthened it since then, done all the rehab that he can do to get his ankle better. But if he were to fall wrong, if he were to take a step weird and mess something up, that very well could end up biting him in the butt again. It very well, he could have a re-injury of it. And then on the other side of the team, or the other side of the ball, I guess I should say, the other team, the Sixers are always just plagued with injury. They're injury, I don't want to say injury prone, because that's just, I don't know, it's got a weird connotation to it, but guys on that team just haven't been healthy all season. Embiid always deals with injuries year in and year out, injuries and illness. Joel Embiid is going to miss time. Nothing you can really say or do about it. That's just how it is. And then at the same time, Tobias Harris has missed some time. Josh Richardson, their starting shooting guard. When the season ended, I guess you could say, he was dealing with concussion symptoms. And those are something you don't want to mess with. Has he had plenty of time to get better and heal? Yes. But concussion-like symptoms like that can mess you up. I'm a big hockey fan, big football fan. Concussions are the types of injuries that are lingering and can keep you off the field for, seasons at a time. If you're not careful, I should say. So I am hoping that he is better. I feel like that would make the series a lot more fun. And then I think with this one, I think it is important just to break down the starting five against starting five. Kemba Walker and Ben Simmons. That's such a tough choice. I love what both of them bring to the table. Ben Simmons is an athletic freak, a freak of nature. He is so athletic. He is so good at facilitating an offense, passing the ball, playing in the post if he needs to, and he does, and he can. The only thing that I don't like about him is his shooting. He is not a good three-point shooter, which is very important in today's NBA. He realistically, his mid-range jumper could also use some work. And then for that reason and that reason alone, I think I take Kemba Walker over him, where Kemba Walker doesn't have the same physical abilities or physical attributes as someone like Ben Simmons. Walker, I think, is a better pure point guard. He passes the ball just as well, if not better. He scores the basket just as well, if not better, and he can shoot. Kemba Walker can shoot the ball. I mean, Kemba Walker is the second highest scoring player on that Celtics team. He's putting up 21.2 points a game. I mean, that's incredible, especially for a guy that doesn't necessarily play as much under the rim. Ben Simmons, on the other hand, is only scoring 16.5 points a game. When it comes to scoring and when it comes to actually playing the point guard position, I have to give the nod to Kemba Walker. Now, Jaylen Brown and Josh Richardson, it's easy. Jaylen Brown is so good, so much fun to watch. He's extremely athletic, very fast, very, very good at, shooting the ball, doing what he does. He is ice cold from three. And Josh Richardson is a good shooting guard. He just is kind of in that tier below, where you've got guys like your Jaylen Brown, your Klay Thompson, guys like that in your upper echelon, and then you take a step down and you've got guys like your Josh Richardson. Now here's another tough one. Jason Tatum and Tobias Harris. This is another tough thing to look through. So that's the thing. If I'm looking at the Celtics, Jason Tatum is the highest scoring player on that team, putting up 23.5 points a game, also getting 7 boards a game and 2 rebounds a game. And then if I look at Tobias Harris, he's scoring significantly less, getting more assists, and I want to say just as many rebounds. So that's a tough one because Harris brings a little bit, I would say he brings a little bit more on the defensive side of the ball than Jason Tatum, but he doesn't do as much on the offensive side of the ball. And just by the amount that extra that Tatum brings to the table, I've got to go with Jason Tatum being better. So right now, I have Kemba being better, Jaylen Brown being better, Jason Tatum being better. Power forward, this is a different conversation. This is one where These players aren't really comparable. I have to put them in the same category, same level. Gordon Hayward and Al Horford. Hayward plays offensively. Horford plays defensively. Horford is better at getting rebounds and playing in front of the net and playing defense, whereas Gordon Hayward is just better offensively. It's as simple as that. They're different style power forwards. Realistically, Gordon Hayward likes to play small forward, but he's big enough to play power forward, and Tatum isn't. Tatum is a pure small forward, whereas Gordon Hayward is realistically a switch player. He can play either position, and he can play either position very, very well. So for these two, I just kind of have it as a wash. Gordon Hayward's better at offense. Horford's better at defense. That would be a matchup that would be interesting to watch. But I don't think that those two guys you can compare and compare well. Now, when it comes to Daniel Tice and Joel Embiid, look, it's not even a conversation. Look, Embiid is better than Tice or Cantor. Enes Cantor does get a lot of minutes for the Celtics, especially in the center position. Embiid is better at both of them, at what both of them are good at doing. Tice is a good defensive center. Embiid is better. Cantor is a better offensive center. Embiid is better. Embiid is one of the best centers in the NBA right now, if not the best center. I'm personally a big fan of Jokic, who plays out in Denver. That's just me. Embiid, though, is just so good at every single thing that he does. If I'm not mistaken, let me see if I can find this again. Yeah, he leads the team in points per game. He's also getting 11 rebounds a game, so he leads the team in rebounds and points. He's averaging a double-double, and he does assist the ball, not necessarily to a high amount or to a really high degree, but he does it very, very well. And this is a tough matchup to look at. So if I look at the benches, I look at guys like Marcus Smart versus guys like Glenn Robinson or Furkan Korkmaz. Personally, I think Marcus Smart could be the starting shooting guard for the Sixers. Marcus Smart is a very, very good player. He just isn't as good as the guys on his own team. Enes Kanter is a good offensive center. I mean, defensively, he's kind of a negative, actually. He doesn't play good defense most of the time at all. And then Grant Williams, he's kind of your pure average replacement level player that, you can just slot him in when a guy gets tired. And looking at this, it might not make a lot of sense why I'm conflicted on this, because I kind of just went through all these players and said I like Kemba better, I like Brown, Tatum better, Hayward and or Horford or Embiid, excuse me, are arguably better than Hayward or Tice, but that's 3 against 2. I do think though that this would be a tough series because Embiid and Simmons or Horford or Harris, those are types of players that can take over a game. Whereas Walker, Brown, Tatum, or Hayward, I don't know if they're necessarily that good on their own. When they're in the group that they have together right now, they play extremely good basketball, and it's good team basketball put together by one of the best coaches in the NBA right now. And that's what I'm struggling with, is essentially team ball versus guys that can dominate a game on their own. And if I look at the benches, I think if this were an actual series, it would go back and forth. It would be very, very competitive, just based on the bench and the amount of depth. Got to go with Boston. I think the Celtics take this one, and I think they take this one probably in 6 or 7. This one would be a very, very tight, competitive series. Now, the last series of, excuse me, of the Eastern Conference, you have the number 4 ranked Miami Heat and the number 5 Indianapolis Pacers. The Heat are 41-24, and the Pacers are 39-26. So this is another matchup where there's 2 separate things that each team is realistically better at or good at. So the Heat have a lot of depth, and I mean a lot of depth and a lot of veteran talent, whereas the Pacers more or less just have star guys, have guys that can take over a game and just pile it on the opposing team. The Heat have that in Jimmy Butler, but he's realistically their only star. So before I get into, the two versus each other, I think it's important to look at these teams out and out. So, starting point guard for the Heat is Kendrick Nunn. They've got Duncan Robinson playing shooting guard, Jimmy Butler playing small forward, Derrick Jones Jr. playing power forward, and Bam Adebayo playing center. And see, thing is, this is a team where I have to talk about their bench quite a bit because they've got a strong bench. They've got Goran Dragic, Jay Crowder, Tyler Harrow, Andre Iguodala, Kelly Olynyk. This is a solid, solid team. Really, when I say top to bottom, I mean starting point guard to starting bench warmer. This is a team that realistically, if any of these guys go down, there is a suitable replacement on the bench. The only guy that I could say is irreplaceable for the Heat is Jimmy Butler. But a guy stepping in like Jay Crowder or Tyler Harrow, even Andre Iguodala, those guys are no slouches. Harrow is young. I get that. Jay Crowder is kind of a journeyman. I get that. Andre Iguodala, though, is a multiple championship winning small forward that can really do it all. He's extremely versatile. Andre Iguodala can play realistically probably any position on the court, maybe not center, but he knows what it takes to win. He's been there before, and he can do what it takes. The only thing with him is that he hasn't played much this season because he refused to play at all for the Memphis Grizzlies. Now, for the Pacers are a little bit of a different situation. Their starting point guard is Malcolm Brogdon. Their starting shooting guard is Victor Oladipo. Small forward is TJ Warren. Power forward is Domantas Sabonis. And center is Miles Turner. Coming off the bench for them would be Jeremy Lamb, Justin, and Aaron Holiday. And one of my favorite players, I guess I could say, when he played for the Knicks, just because his nickname's a lot of fun, and it was just weird to see, or it is kind of weird to see him still playing. It's Dougie McBuckets, Doug McDermott, where, I mean, realistically, all he's good at, he's kind of a great value Kyle Korver. He just shoots it up from three and makes a good couple time and time again. But this is a team where the stars' health for both teams very much makes a difference. Jimmy Butler, just before the season was put on hold, picked up a small injury. He was day to day. He wasn't playing for the Heat. And he's probably fine now. He's likely fine. And the same thing can be said for the two oft injured stars for the Pacers, Malcolm Brogdon and Victor Oladipo. So Malcolm Brogdon started the season very, very hot. Played a bit, got hurt, out for a while. Played another little bit, got hurt, out for a while. He's very much in the roster, out of the roster, in the lineup, out of the lineup. He's a guy where he just misses a lot of time, and that's what you expect out of him. Whereas Oladipo picked up a very, very major leg injury last season and just got back into playing midway through the season. But when he was playing at a very high level. Thing is, the leg injury that he had, if I'm not mistaken, it was either a ligament or a muscular injury, where that's something that if you do the smallest thing wrong, you might re-injure it. So the health of Brogdon and Oladipo is of the utmost importance for the Pacers. If Brogdon or Oladipo go down for a long period of time, that's it. They're done. Simple as that. And that's where I'm getting at with the main matchup with this team. It's a team of depth and versus a team that is a very good starting five. Because if I'm looking at this, Brogdon is a much better point guard than Nunn. Oladipo is a much better shooting guard than Robinson. TJ Warren, I give it to Butler, definitely. Sabonis, I love Domantas Sabonis. He is a great young power forward in the NBA. I think he's a much better power forward than Derrick Jones. And then Bam Adebayo, yeah, he's a better center. So, again, this is one of those things where I think the Pacers have a much better starting five. They're going to field the better players on the court to start the game. But if any of those guys get hurt, if they have to sub in Jeremy Lamb for Malcolm Brogdon or Oladipo, if they have to start Justin Holiday or Aaron Holiday or anybody like that, if they have to start those players and be without their stars, they're without the majority of their scoring ability. On the other hand, for the Heat, yes, their starting players might be of lesser quality, but they're getting a lot better scoring and a lot better just overall play from the players coming off the bench for them, be that Dragic or Crowder or Iguodala for that matter. Iguodala is essentially handmade and handpicked by the Heat for the playoffs. And if I'm just looking at this series trying to pick a winner, I think I'll prefer a team that has a lot of depth and a lot of guys that realistically are plug and play. So for me, Heat win the series, but I think and I hope, just for health reasons, I mean, I hope Brogdon and Oladipo stay healthy. You never want to wish injury on a player. That just isn't right. Brogdon and Oladipo, I hope they stay healthy. And if they do, I think they keep the series close. But I think at the end of the day, the depth of the Heat take that one and they win the series. So just to recap, I have the Heat moving on, I have the Celtics moving on, and then I have the Raptors and the Bucks moving on. Yeah, I understand that there aren't any upsets, there aren't any underdog stories out of the East, but look, the East is very top heavy. Is the best way to put it. I wouldn't say it's broken or anything like that, but it is very, very top heavy, meaning the top couple teams in the Eastern Conference are just leagues better than the bottom half of the conference. Where, like I said, with the Bucks and the Raptors, if those two have to meet before the conference finals, it's going to be either of those two teams that go on to the finals, not just the conference finals, but I would say also the NBA finals. I like what the Celtics are building. I like what the Heat are building, but I just don't think they have the out and out talent to beat either the Raptors or the Bucks. So I mean, just as an overall, I think out of the Eastern Conference comes either the Bucks or the Raptors, and I don't think there's much of a question about that. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you all for watching. I think I'm going to put out a poll about it on Instagram, so please go follow me there. I think it's at, I'll double check real quick, just so I make sure I get the tag and the handle right. So go follow me on Instagram at KingGeorge199. I'll be posting things on my story, like polls to see what you guys might want to see, what might be good to talk about. I want to do hockey. I love hockey. It's my favorite sport. It's arguably the sport that I keep up with the most. I really, really want to talk about hockey and what the NHL might be doing and going on with during this pandemic and during everything that's going on right now. But if not, there are some other things I can talk about, like Korean baseball. I know that sounds like a bit of a joke, but ESPN's been airing some Korean baseball, but I'll put out a poll or put out a questionnaire and see what everybody wants me to talk about, what they would like to see. And if you guys don't have anything else for me, that is all I have for you guys. I hope everybody out there is staying safe, staying inside, staying socially distanced, and just trying to make the best of the situation that we have going on right now. Thank you all for tuning in. I will be back here probably on Tuesday. I will keep everybody posted, whether I go back to my Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or if I keep it Tuesday, Thursday. We'll see what happens. But until next time, I've been George Ruggiero, and this has been Just G Live. Thank you all for tuning in. Peace.